Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, our guest is Dan Genghis. Dan is an international keynote speaker and customer experience coach who believes that a remarkable customer experience is your best marketing strategy. His 20-year professional career spanned multiple disciplines, including customer experience, marketing, social media, and customer service. He held leadership positions at McDonald's, Discover, and Humana. Dan is the author of The Experience Maker, How to Create Remarkable Experiences that Your Customers Can't Wait to Share, which was released in September 2021. And he's also the author of Winning at Social Customer Care, How Top Brands Create Engaging Experiences on Social Media. He also hosts the Experience This Show podcast and the Experience Maker Show. He earned a B.A. in Psychology and Communications from the University of Pennsylvania and an M.B.A. in Marketing from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. So, without further delay, sit back, plug your earphones in, and let's jump right into this fantastic conversation with Dan. Welcome back, Dan.
Well, thank you, Yannick. It is a pleasure to be back.
Yes, I think the last time you were on our podcast was 2017.
Was it really that long ago?
I know, it just seems the other day, right?
It does.
Well, for those of our listeners that are not familiar with you, Dan, could you share a little bit about your journey, how it is that you got to where you are today?
Of course. Well, I started out in a marketing role right after college, even though I had never taken a marketing class. I was a psychology and communications undergraduate major, and I realized once I got into marketing that that's basically what marketing is. It's psychology plus communication. So it turned out to work out pretty well. And I held that job for about 4 years. I really liked it, but I ended up going to business school where I really formalized the marketing learning and learned that everything I had been doing had names and frameworks and all that sort of thing. And then I spent another, 15, 16 years in corporate America in financial services, healthcare, and eventually at McDonald's, learning all sorts of marketing channels, but also evolving into customer experience and really falling in love with CX and its power to impact the bottom line, to obviously make customers happier. And so the book is really a summary of everything that I've learned, put into a simple framework that allows companies to create remarkable experiences for their customers without spending a lot of money.
Amazing. All right. So the book is really, really an awesome tool. So for those of our listeners that are not familiar with Dan's book, it's The Experience Maker, How to Create Remarkable Experiences that Your Customers Can't Wait to Share. So could you share with our listeners, Dan, a little bit about this book? Maybe share with us maybe 3 to 4 pillars that the book is built on and why a company would need a tool like this to enhance their customer experience.
Sure. Well, I am a believer as a marketer that the single best way to do marketing today is to get our customers to do it for us. Mm-hmm. And it's called word of mouth marketing. It's usually been considered the holy grail for marketers and something that's been unattainable until now. And really what we're finding is that when the companies that create great experiences don't have to work so hard at marketing because their customers are doing it for them. They're sharing these experiences because people like sharing positivity.
Yeah.
We know that people share both negative experiences and positive experiences, but what they don't share is an average experience. Nobody ever has said, let me tell you about the perfectly ordinary restaurant I went to last night, right? That's not something we care to share, but man, we will talk about it if it was amazing and we will talk about it if it was terrible. And so the idea of the book is to teach companies, how do you create those amazing experiences and how do you create them in such a way that customers can't help themselves. They reach into their pocket and grab their phone and take a picture and share it and say nice things about you. So the framework that I introduce is called WISER, and it's so that you become wiser than the competition when it comes to customer experience. And the first 4 letters, WISE, stand for witty, immersive, shareable, and extraordinary, which are four different elements that help to create the kinds of experiences that are remarkable or worthy of remark, worthy of talking about. Now, you can use one of them or you can use more than one of them. And the more that you stack them, the more powerful they are. But even just using one is going to start to change how your customers perceive the experience with you. The R in Wiser then becomes about being responsive. And when people are talking about us, especially on social media, we've got to be part of that conversation. After all, if somebody gives us a compliment and we ignore them in real life, that's pretty rude.
Yeah.
They don't think really highly of us. And yet brands do that all the time in social media where customers are complimenting them, but the brand is nowhere to be found.
So one of the things I really liked about the section on witty, right? So you kind of explained that a little bit for us. You indicated that it wasn't so much about being humorous because not many brands can carry off humor depending on what their brand reputation or image is, but more so being very clever and creative in the messaging that you put across. And there was one that really caught my eye in the book when I was reading, the gas station one, where it said customer service is priceless. And I thought that was really cool because at a gas station, typically, rates are not necessarily the best. So that kind of caught my eye. Like if I did see two gas stations, as you suggested in the book, and one said customer service is priceless, I probably would go to the one that said that versus the one that didn't have anything that would have caught my eye. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and one of the ideas there is that competing on price is a loser's game. And all you got to do is talk to that gas station owner because he's got his competitor right across the street selling a very similar product for the exact same price. So competing on price isn't going to work for him. Now, competing on product is also difficult because they're both selling gas, and inside their stores, they're both selling basically the same convenience items. So what's left is customer experience. And if this particular gas station can differentiate based on the service that you're going to get, that is a reason to choose one over the other one across the street.
Yeah, agreed. So the next part of your book talks about delivering an experience that is immersive. Could you maybe give us one or two examples of maybe companies that that have demonstrated an immersive experience?
Sure. So immersive is really about the continuity of the experience and creating something that is consistent and fluid in the customer's eyes. And that's difficult as companies get bigger because they tend to have silos, and everyone in each silo is responsible for one part of the experience, but nobody's responsible for connecting those experiences together. So the poor customer ends up with this very choppy experience moving from part to part in your company. So one of the examples that I share in the book is about a company called Imperfect Produce, and they're a company that takes strangely shaped and sized fruit and vegetables that don't meet the cosmetic standards of a grocery store, and they box them into a subscription service that you can get a box every week at your doorstep. And what they do is play on this idea that their fruits and vegetables sometimes look funny. They're sometimes too big or too small, or they're dented, or they're just shaped weirdly. And so they actually lean into that, and they have these characters that appear throughout the experience that are these vegetables, and they have googly eyes. And you see these characters in their marketing, on the box, really throughout the experience. The other thing that they really lean into is this idea that by buying their fruits and vegetables, which otherwise would have gone into the landfill, you're doing a good thing. You're saving waste from going to the landfill. You're saving water and CO2 because of the farmers not having to replant so often. And they track this on the website. So every time I go in to pick my fruits and vegetables, I'm reminded of how much I have saved from the landfill. And I noticed the other day I had just crossed 1,200 pounds of produce that I've gotten since I've been a customer. And these are the kinds of things that keep people coming back for more because of the immersive nature of them. I'm much more tied into this brand than I would have been if they weren't immersive.
Yeah. It's almost like you feel like you're a part of their journey in whatever they're doing. And because of that, it's much more difficult for you to walk away from them. And it becomes a real relationship because there's value being given on both ends of the spectrum.
Exactly.
Amazing. All right. Now, you also mentioned that your experiences must be shareable, and I remember you used this word in the book, where you said customers have like a meh experience, which is, I guess, just a mediocre one. I guess if we were to compare it to NPS, it would be like persons who score you 7 and 8, because they're not really wowed, but they're not disappointed either, so they're kind of in the middle. Um, so what I really wanted to ask was, we have customers who we want to share our experiences, and you mentioned that word of mouth is the best type of advertising for any business. How can we get our customers to the point where they want to share their experiences with us and it's not just a meh experience?
Well, the best example that I think really epitomizes this is the story that I tell in the book of taking my son for his birthday to a restaurant called Fleming's Steakhouse. And we walk into the restaurant. I had already told them ahead of time that it was my son's birthday. And the maitre d' hands him a birthday card that is signed by the staff. And I was pretty impressed with that. I had not seen that before.
Very cool.
And we're sitting and eating our dinner, and the discussion turns to, and this may just happen in families where dad is a customer experience guy, but the discussion turns to, my daughter actually brought up and said, hey, if they brought us a birthday card, I'll bet they're going to do something pretty special at the end of the meal. I don't think we're just going to get, in the U.S., you often get a slice of cake and a candle, when it's your birthday. And it's a very nice gesture. It's just that every restaurant does it. So it doesn't necessarily stand out. And sure enough, Fleming's did not disappoint. They came out with a box of handmade chocolates that was sitting on a plate where happy birthday was spelled out in cocoa powder. And instead of a candle, they had a sparkler. And the sparkler is so much cooler than a candle. Now, there's 4 people at the table, and without being told to and without coordinating, everybody immediately grabbed for their phones. And they took a picture of this dessert. And the parent shared it to Facebook, and the kids shared it to Snapchat or Instagram. And just like that, Fleming's had 4 different shares of an experience at their restaurant, all because they decided that a slice of cake and a candle, while a nice gesture, is just not going to stand out enough for people to want to share it. Now, I'll bet that box of chocolates and the sparkler doesn't cost them much more. It might even be around the same price. But the idea is that it's so completely different and it stands out in such a way that people can't help themselves. They want to take a picture of it.
Yeah.
And so I use that as a metaphor for companies to think about, where do you have a candle that you could turn into a sparkler? Because that's the difference. That's what makes it shareable.
Yeah. That's amazing. That was really out of the box thinking that restaurant did for your son. And you're right. Every restaurant does just give a cake and a candle. So if you're doing something different, then I guess that's where the extraordinary in your WISE acronym comes in, because that experience was definitely extraordinary. It was definitely out of the ordinary.
Yeah, and extraordinary just means a little bit better than ordinary.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, a private fireworks show and a Beyonce concert, right? That's extraordinary too. But nobody has that kind of budget to do. And so it's just about figuring out somewhere in your journey where, let's say, you're doing something the same way that your competitors do it. That's a pretty good bet that that's an average experience, because your competitors are not delivering extraordinary experiences most of the time. So if you're doing it like everybody else is doing it, do it differently. And that's a great way to go from ordinary to extraordinary. Make it stand out by being a little bit different. And that is another element that causes people to want to talk about it.
Yeah. So, Dan, a big part of customer experience now, I know it has definitely changed a lot. I mean, I know a lot of customers are paying so much more attention to it now since we're all going through this global pandemic. But have you found that customers' expectations have changed somewhat since the pandemic? Do you find that they're more sensitive to customer experiences? Their expectations are higher? Like, what has your experience been as a customer experience specialist in this area?
Well, absolutely. I think we as customers really took note, especially early on in the pandemic, of which companies were there for us when we really needed them and which companies weren't. And the truth is that a lot of companies did a very nice job, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, responding, reacting, and innovating. And then other companies really did not a good job of this, right? And did the, basically checked the box and didn't particularly do anything different. So an example of that is when the pandemic first started, most of us got a lot of emails from companies that were telling us about their enhanced cleaning procedures. And I loved that everybody called them enhanced cleaning procedures. They weren't ever better or improved or anything other than the word enhanced, because somebody started using the word enhanced and then everybody else copied that word. And they also sent us, at least in the US, they would send us to the CDC website, which is the Center for Disease Control. I'm sure other countries have a similar organization. And what I found was that all these emails basically said the same thing. They were totally uncreative, unremarkable. And then I got an email from my investment broker, Charles Schwab, and their email didn't say anything about cleaning procedures or the CDC website. Instead, their email said, "We understand that you must be very nervous about a volatile stock market. And so we want to make sure that you know all of these tools and benefits that you have available to you that you can use to help you through this difficult time." And for me, that was exactly what I needed from my investment firm. I didn't care about their cleaning procedures. That wasn't important to me, but I certainly cared about a volatile stock market. So that's the difference between companies that cared and that were really trying to deliver what customers needed at this difficult time versus what everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
And so, that is something that customers remember. And we've seen lots and lots of customers switch brands during the pandemic because they realized that the company they were doing business with just wasn't going to be delivering the experience that they wanted.
Agreed. All right. Amazing. So that's definitely some of the ways that our customers' expectations have changed. I think also, Dan, since the pandemic, organizations have to, I get that digital transformation is super important, and it definitely makes life that much easier for the customer and can create that effortless experience for them and seamless experience, especially seeing that, you may not want to physically go to the business place. But, I get a lot of questions, from time to time from companies, asking me questions like, do you think human beings are going to become obsolete totally in the whole realm of customer experience? And of course, my answer is always no. But in this whole digital transformation space that, companies are going through, how do you think we can rehumanize the customer experience, even though we're using digital to support that whole transition and make things easier for the customers?
Well, I totally agree with you. Humans aren't going anywhere. We're not going to be replaced by robots. And the reality is that customers today crave human interaction. And the pandemic actually exacerbated that, especially the time that we were all stuck in our homes for so long. We wanted human interaction. And so there's a time and a place for both human engagement and technology engagement within the customer journey. There are times where we just want to self-serve and we just want to go online and see our balance or pay a bill or whatever, and we don't want anybody to bother us. We just want to do it ourselves. And then there are other times where we really need to talk to someone because we have a problem that we don't think we can solve by ourselves or that might have too many layers to it. And so we don't at that point want to talk to a computer. We want to talk to a person. And I think the companies that are getting it right are figuring out when do we deliver self-service and when do we deliver human service. But those two things are always going to exist. One is not going to replace another.
Awesome. Thank you. Great response. All right. Now, Dan, can you share with us what's the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
I would say right now it's actually LinkedIn. And the reason for that is just that it is the place where I network, where I share content, where I consume other people's content, and where I meet people that want to do business with me. And I think that is the space right now online that I can't do without.
Okay. All right. Can you also share with us maybe one or two books that have had the biggest impact on you? It could be a book that you read a very long time ago or even one that you read recently, but it still had a great impact on you.
One of my favorites is They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. It's a marketing book, and it teaches you how to create content around the questions that your customers ask you or that your prospects ask you. And so although it's a marketing book, it actually takes a lot of customer experience themes into it. And I think it was one of the most valuable books that I have read and have used in my own business and actually have used with clients as well.
All right.
Another one that I would pick, I'm trying to pick a fiction one for you here just for fun. Let's see here. Well, I think I'll stay in nonfiction because that'll probably make it a little bit easier. I'm going to go with one of Jay Baer's books because I love him as well. I really loved Utility, but I'm going to go with Hug Your Haters. And much like my first book being about social media customer service, this is really a book that tells you to embrace complaints and to learn from them and to treat them as gifts because they can help you not only be responsive to customers and maybe turn them from detractors to advocates, but also to go back to your business and find what's actually wrong and try to fix it for other people. So Hug Your Haters is another one that definitely changed how I think about things.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for sharing those two. We'll have the links to those two books in the show notes of this episode. Can you also share with us what's the one thing that's going on in your life right now? Something that you're really excited about. It could be something you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
Well, you're asking a guy that just spent 9 months launching a book. So I'm now kind of just coming off of that. And but I'll say that I am super excited to be back speaking on stages in person. I had 2 keynotes this week in 2 different cities. It was so nice to be with people again. And yes, everybody's being safe and wearing a mask where appropriate. But there's just something as a speaker to talking to people in real life and seeing their eyes and seeing their reactions and hearing them laugh and clap and what have you, that just doesn't happen on Zoom or in digital channels. And so that's something I'm really excited about is the fact that that live events are coming back and are back in some places. And I really look forward to doing a lot more of those in 2022.
That's brilliant. Love that. Love that. So simple. And, pre-pandemic, we probably would have taken these very simple things for granted. Like, I'm sure we never would have imagined a time when we were locked up in our homes and everything had to be digital. So now that, as you said, we're getting back out there and we're still being safe, but you really appreciate the very simple things in life that, as I would say, we may have taken for granted. We wouldn't have realized how important or how valuable those kinds of experiences are.
Exactly.
All right, Dan. So our listeners would have tapped into this episode. They would have heard about your book, The Experience Maker, and also your previous book, as well as your own podcast. And they're quite excited to follow you on your journey and tap into all of the great things that you have in store. Where can they find you online?
Well, you can find me at dangingiss.com, and that's GINGISS. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Twitter at dgingiss, and active on both of those platforms. And as I taught in the book about being responsive, I am somebody that will always respond to you. So if you reach out and say hi, I am happy to respond and have a conversation back.
Awesome. Amazing. All right. Now, before we wrap our episodes up, we always like to ask our guests, do you have a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote? It kind of helps to keep you on track or get you refocused if for any reason you got derailed.
Actually, this quote, believe it or not, comes from a fortune cookie. And I got this fortune that I was so excited about, and I taped it up onto my camera right behind my laptop screen. So since the camera's always facing me, I can always see this. And it says, "Never mind tomorrow, today is the day." And I love that because there are days where we want to procrastinate, or there's days where we just don't have the energy. And I like reminding myself that today's the day, and today is the day that I can move my business forward. I can help a customer out. I can do something nice for somebody. And you never know what tomorrow brings, or even if tomorrow brings. And so that's a quote that's definitely stuck with me for a while.
Amazing. All right. So we will have
Am I the first person to quote a fortune cookie on your show?
Yeah, I think so. Most people quote like past presidents or maybe some famous quote from a book or a hero. But yeah, that's the first one, a fortune cookie. I wonder who it originated from, but I like it. I like the fact that it focus on what you can do today, because really tomorrow isn't guaranteed.
Exactly.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dan, for coming back on our show, Navigating the Customer Experience, and sharing with us all of the great nuggets from your newest book, The Experience Maker, How to Create Remarkable Experience that your customers can't wait to share. This book has some great and amazing nuggets, really built on pillars of ensuring that your content is witty, immersive, shareable, and extraordinary. So if you're looking to really up your customer experience game, then this is definitely the best playbook for you to engage with. So thank you so much, Dan.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So we just want to remind our listeners, please feel free to hop onto Facebook and follow us. It's called Navigating the Customer Experience Community. And also feel free to follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. We also have a new book available on Amazon, The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience. It's available in ebook and paperback. So if you want to increase revenue in your organization, build a stronger service culture, and create employees or develop employees who are really mastering service delivery in your business, you need to grab a copy of this book. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.